In the golden sands of Egypt, under the blazing sun and amidst the splendor of temples and towering obelisks, lived a woman who would seduce empires, defy fate, and outshine even the gods. Her name echoes through time. Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt, the queen who defied Rome, and the woman who became legend. But who was Cleopatra really? Beneath the myths and the makeup, the seductions and the scandals, was a cunning ruler, a brilliant linguist, and a political force unmatched in her time. This is not just the story of a queen. It is the rise and fall of an empire. Cleopatra VII, Philopator, was born in 69 BCE into a dynasty of chaos. The Ptolemies had ruled Egypt since Alexander the Great's general, Ptolemy I, seized the throne 3 centuries earlier. Though Macedonian Greeks, the Ptolemies adopted many Egyptian customs, and Cleopatra would take that to the next level. She was not your average princess. Educated in philosophy, astronomy, mathematics, and fluent in at least 9 languages, Cleopatra was the first Ptolemaic ruler to speak Egyptian in centuries. She was born into a bloody court, full of conspiracies, betrayals, and royal family members who had a habit of murdering each other for power. And Cleopatra, she learned to survive. When her father, Ptolemy XII, died in 51 BCE, Cleopatra became co-ruler with her 10-year-old brother, whom she was forced to marry under Egyptian tradition. But Cleopatra had no intention of sharing power. 3 years into her reign, Cleopatra's enemies forced her into exile. At just 21 years old, she was alone, hunted, and stripped of her throne. But Cleopatra was not defeated. She was only preparing. In 48 BCE, an unexpected opportunity arrived, in the form of a Roman general, on the run from his own enemies. Julius Caesar. When Caesar arrived in Alexandria, Cleopatra saw not just a man, but a means of reclaiming her power. Legend tells us she had herself smuggled into the palace rolled in a carpet, unfurled at Caesar's feet like a gift from the gods. He was 52, she was 21. But what Cleopatra offered was not just beauty, it was ambition, vision, and something Caesar respected: intellect. Together, they crushed her brother's forces, and Cleopatra returned to the throne, now sole ruler of Egypt. Cleopatra gave birth to a son, Caesarion, Little Caesar. She claimed he was Caesar's heir, a bold and dangerous declaration in a Roman world built on legacy. For a time, the two ruled like gods. Cleopatra sailed the Nile with Caesar, cloaked in gold, living as Isis and Osiris reborn. But the dream could not last. In 44 BCE, Julius Caesar was assassinated on the Ides of March, stabbed 23 times by his own senators. In the blink of a dagger, Cleopatra's protector was gone. Into the chaos stepped another Roman, one of Caesar's most trusted generals, Mark Antony. Their meeting, years later, would spark a love affair and a war that would shake the foundations of the ancient world. Cleopatra arrived in Tarsus aboard a gilded barge, dressed as the goddess Aphrodite. Perfume filled the air, music played, her entrance was a performance, and Antony, he was captivated. What followed was a love story unlike any other. Passionate, political, and perilous. They married, illegally by Roman standards, and had 3 children. Antony gave Cleopatra lands, titles, and power. Rome grew restless. Whispers of betrayal and foreign influence turned to accusations. And in 31 BCE, the Roman Senate declared war, not on Antony, but on Cleopatra. The final battle came at Actium, a naval clash off the western coast of Greece. Outnumbered and outmaneuvered by Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir and future Augustus, Antony and Cleopatra's fleet faltered. Cleopatra fled. Antony followed. It was the beginning of the end. They retreated to Alexandria, their empire crumbling around them. As Octavian's forces closed in, Antony, misled into believing Cleopatra was dead, fell on his sword. Bleeding, dying, he was brought to her mausoleum. There, he died in Cleopatra's arms. Days later, as Octavian marched into her city, Cleopatra prepared for her final act. Dressed in royal finery, she arranged for a poisonous asp, a cobra, to be smuggled into her chamber. In her final moments, Cleopatra took her life, not as a captive, not in chains, but as a queen. With Cleopatra's death, 3,000 years of Egyptian pharaohs came to an end. Egypt fell to Rome and became just another province of an expanding empire. But Cleopatra? She would never be forgotten. Was she a temptress or a tactician? A manipulator or a martyr? History, mostly written by her enemies, painted her as a seductress. But modern scholars see something more: a strategic mind, a ruthless survivor, and a ruler who navigated a world dominated by men through charm, intelligence, and raw political skill. Her story has inspired artists, writers, filmmakers for centuries. Because Cleopatra is not just history, she is myth. She is memory. She is power, from the temples of Thebes to the Senate halls of Rome. From the banks of the Nile to the stage of the world, Cleopatra lives on, not just as the last queen of Egypt, but as a symbol of beauty, of ambition, and of the eternal struggle between power and destiny.